Hi, welcome to this short course on how to be a success at your job. 9 secrets that are guaranteed to give you success in your workplace and at the positions you hold. I started out by gathering these when I was in high school. I ended up by being president of my senior class, achieving the Good Citizenship Award in high school in my graduating year. I began work as a janitor, emptying waste paper baskets, a janitor's helper, you might say, and became eventually a full-fledged janitor and went to college, went on through all of that, obtained my degree, and eventually became a CEO or Chief Executive Officer of a healthcare operation, and eventually retired at the age of 51. During all those years, I developed this list of 9 important elements to being a success at work, and I began to compare what I found with the lives of other people. I ran into and worked with generals, politicians, senators, and representatives. I met professional musicians along the way, artists, authors, and I began to observe as well what made their lives a success and what success meant to them, how they achieved it. And I found that from appearances it seemed like the same things that I had gathered over the years they were using in their lives as well. So what I did is I've come up with 9, I call them secrets. They're important elements that if you put these into your life, into your work, I can practically guarantee, if you're sincere and you put your heart and soul into it, that you will be a success at your job. I have 2 things that I want to cover before we get into the material. The first thing is this success course assumes, it's a basic premise, that you already hold the minimum skill sets for the job that you have or that you're going after. In other words, if you want to succeed at accounting, we assume here as a starting place you already have the skills and knowledge necessary to be an accountant. Or if you want to be an engineer, succeed in that field, that you know how to be an engineer. You have the training and the skill set for that. If you're in the healthcare area, that you have the necessary training and skill set for that as a starting point. We also want to point out what we mean by success. If we just say, well, making a lot of money, well, you can make a lot of money by robbing a bank, but is that being a success at your work? At least the way I'm using it here, the answer is no. There's 4 parts to being a true success at your work. And those 4 are what we'll cover in the course. The first one is financial, that you achieve the financial goals that are important to you. The second is your job, the job assignment, the job position, the particular work that you're doing. Is it what you wanted? Is it what you had as your goal? The third element is gaining the respect of co-workers for the quality of the work you do, for your reputation for the work you do. And the last point is to have your own respect, to be able to respect yourself for the work you do and for who you are, and the quality of your work. So if you put all 4 of those things together and excel in all 4 areas, you will be a success at your job. And this class is going to cover those things. That's what we're going to talk about. But it isn't just about having money, because you can be a crime boss or a bank robber, as I said, and have money, at least for a period of time. But that doesn't mean you're a success the way we're talking about it here in a career. So those are the starting points. That's the definition. And I think you'll agree that you'll find these things, these 9 secrets, easy to implement. You implement them on a regular basis. Put your heart into them. Do them sincerely. Do them daily. And you will be practically guaranteed that you will achieve your work success. And if things don't work out completely the way you planned, you'll feel great about what you've done, what you're doing, and how you went about it. So these 9 secrets, I think you'll find that they almost speak for themselves and how important they are. If people fall down, I would say they fall down in not following through. It's one thing to study step number 1 or step number 2, but it's another thing tomorrow when you go to work to implement it, to do something, to make a small step, to put that into your work ethic. And that's important. It's always important. It's nice to learn something, it's nice to hear something, but where the rubber hits the road is when we take it and apply it to our life. It's easy to do. It's easy for us spiritually to do because it's the heart and soul of being a good, genuine, sincere, solid employee. So it comes naturally. So let's talk now about the 9 secrets. We're going to take one at a time. And if you're ready, you might want to have pen and pencil, pen and paper. And we'll follow it up. We'll summarize it at the end to make sure that we hit the fine points, the bigger issue. And I wish you good luck in your job, your career. So let's begin with step number 1. The first one we're going to talk about today is always do your best. For many years I served during my career as a human resource director. I hired a lot of people. I disciplined, counseled a lot of people, terminated people, reassigned people, particularly hiring people, because we found with the good jobs that we had that there were a lot more applicants for than we could handle. I mean, there would be a stack of resumes for a job that we had. So we always had plenty of candidates to pick from. Let me tell you one secret about human resources. Contrary to what you might think, you don't have to be the strongest, the smartest, or the most educated person to succeed at a job. As a matter of fact, if you do believe any of those things, you're on the wrong track. Those things are noteworthy. It's nice to be the most physically able if it's a manual job requiring physical abilities, or to be educated and to be very intelligent. Those are nice things. But they're not keys to success in the workplace. And the reason for that is because we're talking about quality of work. And the quality of your work does not necessarily depend on those 3 things. And I want you to think about that. Just because you may know the most, or have the highest degree, or the highest certification, it doesn't mean you're the best employee. You need to think about that. Because if we're going to succeed at our job, we need to start out being sure, having confidence in ourselves and our capabilities, but also being humble. What matters most to a boss is that you do good work. And so a boss is going to value an employee regardless of their training and highfalutin degrees and how many languages they can speak, with how good they do their job. So always work hard to do your best. You have to look at your job as though your name is invisibly stamped on every project you do, on every job you do. You're signing it. It's your signature on it, whether it's actually done with an ink pen or not. Your reputation is on the line every time you do a job. So when your boss is told, well, Jimmy Jones did this project, or he's working on this project, or Ellen is working on that project for you, what does that tell your boss? Think about that. What does your reputation tell your boss? Is it mediocre? My wife had two diamond or gold rings. She wanted to join them together to make a double ring out of two. Well, she took it into a jewelry shop. And they kept it for about a week and never heard back from them. She tried to call them, they didn't answer the phone. After a couple days, she finally got a hold of them. We went in and picked up the ring. She looked at the job they had done when they joined the two rings to make a double ring. It's just something she wanted to do. And it looked okay on the very top, where you see it here. But if you looked underneath, it was really crummy. There were bubbles, and I don't know anything about working with gold, but it really looked lousy. And so she pointed that out. She said, I brought these rings in here, you're charging me to do this. And there's all this, it's not nice and smooth and done like I would have expected for the money I'm being charged. And you know what the craftsman, the technician, whoever does that sort of thing in jewelry shops, you know what his response was? Well, it was on the bottom. I didn't think anybody would notice. Don't do that. All right? That's mediocrity to the nth degree. And my wife one time bought me a piano to surprise me, a used piano. And she had it delivered to the house. I'm not a pianist by any stretch of the imagination. I've had no formal training or anything, but I love music. So I sat down and started playing it, and with what little I knew, self-taught. Well, it was obvious to me that it was out of tune. And it was obvious to me that there were a few pads that needed repair or adjustment of some sort. So I mentioned that. Well, she called the store where she bought this piano. And that person's response was, well, I thought that since your husband is not very well practiced in piano, he's just learning, that he wouldn't notice. Well, he didn't take that into account when he charged us for the piano. He charged us full price. So the end result of that was they brought a different piano. Went through a lot of work on their part to take a piano and bring one in. But that's mediocrity. And those two places, the jewelry shop and that music place, have in my mind very mediocre ratings. I would not recommend them for any work, because it's slipshod. Their name has been connected with that. Now anyone can make a mistake, but when they purposely, knowingly cut a corner just because they think they can get away with it, don't do that. Always do your best at your job. Be known for the work that you do. When I do a job, I want someone to say, oh, did you say Pat McConaughey was in charge of that project? Oh, well, I don't need to worry about it anymore then. I know it'll be done right. And I know he'll keep me informed. And I know if he does make a mistake and flub up, it's not about being perfect. That he'll let me know and he'll fix it. He'll try to fix it. He'll do what he can. I can trust the work. Be known for that, doing your best. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be the smartest. You don't have to have the most degrees. Just do your honest best and be open to new ideas and new methods of your co-workers or your boss or your subordinates. Come to you with an idea. Be open to it. Sometimes as a supervisor, someone may come to you with an idea, and in your mind, because of perhaps your experience, you say, well, I don't know if that's the best way to do it. I've done this for years. But sometimes it's important to let other people try it. They may have a better way of doing it than what you were thinking. It may work out fine. It may have been a brilliant idea. Be open and be willing to let other people give you advice. Maybe you're working with a machine or you're doing a certain project and someone else has an observation or has experience that might help you. Well, don't be defensive about it. Listen to them and give it a try. Number one, you'll earn their respect because you treated them with dignity and you listened to them. And even if you decide not to do it their way, to listen to them with respect and dignity, and be open to new methods, new ways of doing things. And always be willing to learn from other people. Set your ego aside, because that's what it is. It's like so many times somebody can point out something that we could do differently or should, and often they're right. Sometimes maybe they're not. But often they have a good idea. Listen to them and try it if you think you can. But be willing to learn from others. Be willing to admit that you don't know everything that there is to know about a job. I don't think there's anybody. I don't think Albert Einstein would have said to any, I'm not aware of him ever giving a speech where he said, I know everything that I need to know. And I don't want anybody giving me advice because I already know everything that I need to know. He would have been too intelligent for that. He would have been willing and open to learn new things that pertain to what he was doing. So be willing to learn. Always do your best. That's the important part of this step. And it starts tomorrow when you go to work. You'll hear this in every step about starting, not only just listening to it and saying, well, yes, that's a good idea, something to think about. No, it's something tomorrow to put into your job. Do your best. If you don't know the answers to a question, ask. People like, generally people like to be asked. They like to show you how to do something. It's good for their self-esteem to know that you ask them a question or you ask for advice. And sometimes they may not be able to give it. Sometimes they may be busy. Sometimes they may feel threatened by you and your job that you're doing, and they may feel competitive. Yes, you all have all that, those dynamics that can come into play. But basically, people like to be helpful. You like to be helpful. You like to help other people. And so other people are the same way. But whether they are or not, be willing to do your best. People respect someone who's trying their hardest to do the best job they can. And if they don't feel it's as good as they can do, then they're learning and they're trying to figure out a better way, a better method. So always do your best at whatever project, large and small, and don't cut corners by saying, well, I didn't think they would notice. Don't ever say that. Don't cut a corner by saying, well, by the time they find out, I'll be gone. And we never want to burn a bridge. Even if we're going to quit, if we've given our 2-week notice, continue to do the best you can. Never burn a bridge. That's been a motto of mine throughout my whole career. Because it's amazing how your previous employers, previous co-workers can give you references. They may hire you again someday in some other venue. So always do your best. Step number 1. Secret number 2 is be loyal. And what I mean by that, look at your job, whatever that job is, as a true, genuine professional. When you're at work, whatever that job is, do it to the best of your ability, as we talked about before. And remember that at this moment, whether you like this job, like this assignment, like your coworkers, like your boss, like your company, you are in this position. You are being paid for this position. So be loyal. And I liken it to the example that I use is it's as if you're a mercenary. It's nothing personal. And I always thought about this when I was in the working world. I treated myself as if I was a mercenary. I had several jobs, transferred a lot, moved to different towns, things like that. And wherever I was, at that moment, I thought of myself as being a professional, which means that while I was at that job, I took that job, I accepted it, that whether I agreed with everything or not, I was a good, loyal, dependable employee, again, always doing the best that I could. It's having a certain amount of objectivity. If you don't feel that you can be loyal in your job and be a good employee for the organization that you work for, rather than participate in a civil war, quite honestly, you need to get out of that job. You need to quit. And that's okay. If there's something about the job, the workers, or their philosophy and that you can't agree with, that's okay. But then quit. Move on. Don't complain and blame and criticize and be a negative force. Get out of the job. But while you're there, be loyal. The other example that I used to use with my superiors, and a few times I did tell them this, that while I was there as an assistant to them or a lieutenant in some form or other, that they didn't have to worry about my department. And I used the example of a cement floor, a concrete floor. I would tell them, you can treat my area, at least what I'm responsible for, as if you're standing on a concrete floor and it's not going to give out from under you. I have you covered. I have your back. It's not going to fall. There won't be any surprises tomorrow with the roof caving in. I'll keep you informed. If you need to know something, I'll make sure you're the first to know. If they don't need to know things, then take care of it. That's what you're paid for. But if you're doing your job, you're doing it, and you're doing it to the best of your ability, and the bases are covered. That's what being loyal is. It's about being able to, a boss, an organization being able to count on you for what they contracted you to do. Yet again, if you don't like what you're doing, then you should quit. There's nothing wrong with that either. But if you're there, you should be the most loyal and dependable employee that you can possibly be. Don't participate in palace intrigue, trying to overthrow this person or embarrass that person or compete with this. That's very disrupting. It's disruptive in a third world country. You see people fighting back and forth for power and control. It's disruptive in any organization to have people tugging at each other, trying to one up, embarrass, trying to compete for a position. Nothing wrong with competing, but when it gets to be backstabbing and it gets to be dirty fighting, that is very disruptive. It makes the organization dysfunctional. It makes it a very, very bad, stressful place to work. And we're talking here about being a success at your job. And being a success also means being fulfilled and feeling good about the work you do. And if you're going to be engaged in palace intrigue, trying to overthrow this person and that and playing the games, you're not going to be productive. The organization's going to be dysfunctional and you won't be productive. So be loyal. When you're at a job, do the best you can. Represent your company and make your supervisor look good. That's an old cliche, but it's true. Make your supervisor look good. Don't worry about who gets the credit for something. Because I'll tell you one thing from inside the business world. If you are working hard at making other people look good, your name will get around. Your reputation will get around for being a good, solid employee that's valuable. Supervisors will fight over you. All because you were just trying to make the organization look good and your boss looked good. And everybody wants a piece of that. So be loyal. If you're going to work for a place, do the best you can and be as honest and predictable as you can. And if you don't feel you can do that, again, I repeat, then you need to move on. Get out of there. Be genuinely loyal. And you'll find that the entire organization will appreciate that. Your co-workers will appreciate it. Your supervisors and upper managers, everyone will appreciate and, again, respect that. And it will help you be a success at your job. So be loyal. Be dependable. In this section we're going to talk about dependability, reliability. It's so important in the workplace that you be known for someone that your co-workers, your supervisor, managers, the organization can count on. Can count on to be there when a job has to be done. Can count on to work together with other people. Can count on doing the best job you know how, to do it the correct way, to do it the way it's supposed to be, to do it the way the policies and procedures expect it to be done, require it to be done. Be known for that. Be known for someone you can count on. Let me give you an example. For some years I lived in northern Michigan, up along the shores of Lake Superior. Up along that, Lake Superior in the wintertime can produce some heavy snowstorms. And the main road ran along the shore for quite some ways. And I had a job where I drove 40 miles to work one way. And as often happens in the wintertime, we had a storm one time that was what we call a whiteout. A whiteout is a kind of a terrible storm where you just can't see. The visibility is so It's only a matter of yards that you can see when you're driving, or feet. So what the state police does is they barricade the road until the storm is over. It's a main road, but they barricade it because it's too dangerous to drive. So when that happens, many of the workers who drove 40, 50 miles or more to work wouldn't go into work. It didn't happen a lot, but it would happen 3 or 4 times a year. Well, one time it happened, and I knew that there was a back county road that I could take instead. That was inland a little ways and still stormy, but I could see the road. Not very well, but I could still see the road. And so I took that road. It took me quite a while that day to get to work. But I got there, and when I arrived, I went in the front door. I went into the chief executive's office to tell him I was there. And he said, yes, a lot of people didn't make it in today because of the storm. He said, but I knew you'd make it. Now, I know I didn't have to make it that day, but that meant a lot to me, that he thought that much about my work, and my work ethic, my reliability, my dependability, that if it was at all possible to get there, that I would, because I was expected. And it's important to be known for being dependable. If you're going to do a job, do it. Do it the way it's supposed to be. Don't do it in a mediocre way. Be dependable. Being someone, if you say you're going to deliver something by Friday, do it. If it's going to be handed in tomorrow, do it. Now, we know that things happen where sometimes we can't meet our deadlines. All sorts of things happen. But if we do the best we can, and we try the hardest we can, and then we can't make it happen, our bosses are going to understand that. They're going to know, well, things happen. None of us are happy about it, but things happen. It wasn't because Pat was sloughing it off, or he didn't really believe in doing the job. It was because something legitimately came up. And what I found oftentimes with this happened, and for some reason or another I just wasn't able to get it done on time, I would go to my boss and report that it wasn't possible to meet the deadline, or I made a mistake and I screwed it up. What I found by practicing dependability and reliability on a daily basis to the best of my ability, I found my boss getting to the point where he would say, Pat, I don't want to hear about it. Whatever I know, whatever it is, I know you'll take care of it. I know that something came up, I trust you. I know that you'll figure out what to do, and you'll get back with me. And we'll come up with a new plan. But I don't need excuses, and I don't need an explanation. That came from being known for the work that I tried to do. And again, it isn't about being perfectionist. It's mistakes get made. Deadlines get forgotten. Deadlines just can't be met for circumstances that can't be helped. But if people know that you're doing the best that you can, they're going to, most of the time, give you a pass. They're going to be understanding because they know that your heart's in the right place, that you're doing the best you can. And so dependability and reliability, have that as part of your reputation, that you're known, if your name's connected with it, that you're going to do the best job you can. You're going to do it on time. You're going to be someone they can count on. And if that falls through, there's surely a good reason for it. And it will go a long way toward making you a valued employee in your workplace. Helping others. It goes without saying that this is very important. It's all about, in the workplace, building a sense of community, of camaraderie, of a form of brotherhood, if you will, where everyone's working together. You know, an organization, an agency, is in one respect, a living, breathing entity. The people together make things happen. And so if you approach your job as a community, it's a sub-community, and the people there are all trying to work together. I mean, that's the way we want to look at it. We want to help others. And if we see where we can help someone, rather than look at it as being a competitive thing, like, oh good, they need help, that means if they don't get help, they'll look bad, and it'll help me, and I'll look good, and maybe I'll get the promotion or the raise. They won't. No, don't do that. If you can help someone, help them. You may just see a need. And again, that is assuming that it doesn't jeopardize your work. You have responsibilities and duties, things that you have to do. We understand that, and priorities. But oftentimes we see where we can help someone and it doesn't derail our day to do that. Help them. And if they ask for a little help, be willing to help them. It creates a couple things. Number one, it makes you feel good that you can help someone. If you approach it from a giving standpoint and not as an imposition, it'll make you feel good. The other thing is the other person will appreciate it, and the people who see this happening, who know about it, who find out about it, it will change their opinion of you too, and their feeling toward you. You create a certain cohesiveness, you build on the cohesiveness that's so important in a community. And the other thing from a psychological standpoint that I'll mention, we wouldn't necessarily do the good deed to help others for this, but it's a side effect. It's the obligation. Studies have shown over and over again, when we do something nice for someone, and it can be a small thing, it creates in them, the other person, the receiver, a sense of obligation. There's a feeling as though they're beholden to us. And again, we don't want to be manipulative, and we don't want to do this just to collect favors from people. But I'm saying there's a psychological thing going on here, where if you do something good for someone, they register it, and they feel somewhat beholden. Now, why is that important? Well, you may need help down the road, and they can help you. You may ask for help. Or they may just say, well, you know, I wouldn't do it for anybody else, but since you ask, I'll do it for you. So you create that sense of obligation, and it's so important. It gives them a chance to return the favor, and then you feel good about that. They feel good about it. It begins to snowball. It creates a very positive environment, and the other people who observe this are affected as well. Not just the two of you, the giver and the receiver, but everyone. The spectators are affected by this too. So it creates a cooperative feeling and atmosphere. And you know, you need that in an organization, because an organization works on synergy. Now, synergy is a fancy word for the way it's often described is 1 + 1 = 2. In other words, you and I can do things separately. If we combine our efforts, we can do more than we could have done separately. 2 + 2 = 5. And if everyone's working together, an organization can accomplish far more than individuals could on their own. So it fosters this sense of community, this wanting to work together, to help each other, not just because it's helping us, but if it helps the person next to us, it helps us all get the job done and get a good job done. and we feel supported. And that's so important. And helping others, again, with other people seeing it, it fosters respect. Other people will respect you for being willing to help someone when you can, when it's appropriate, and when it doesn't jeopardize your work again. And a person who is the recipient will respect you. And respect is a very important part of the 9 secrets. And you can do that in part by looking for ways, being on the lookout for ways that you can help others. And do it whenever you can. Honesty and trustworthiness, so important in the workplace. When we talk about honesty, we want to talk about compassionate honesty, first of all, and diplomatic honesty. We're not talking about being brutal and being cruel about honesty when it comes to the workplace. But we're talking about being someone who can be counted on to be trusted. Would you like to work with somebody that you don't think is honest? Would you like to work with someone that you can't trust? Well, enough said. If you wouldn't like to work with somebody that you can't trust, then why on earth would you not be trustworthy in the workplace? Because other people have that same sentiment. Be honest and trustworthy. With your bosses, let them know when things are not going as planned. Let them know. Keep them informed. Even with bad news, let them know. Again, in management, we manage generally by exception. We don't want to, a manager doesn't want to hear every little detail of everything that's happened during the day. But when things happen that are exceptions, particularly unusual, out of the ordinary, could be sensitive, could be a problem, let the manager know, or if other co-workers need to know because it might affect their work, let them know. Be honest. Let them know so that they're not embarrassed, so that it doesn't create a lot of problems for the workplace. It doesn't, maybe not being honest would ruin products, derail the mission of the place. A lot of problems can happen if we have information and we don't make it known to people who need to know the information. So be known as somebody that, if you're in a work position, that you can be counted on to keep everybody informed, to not tell lies, to do good work, and be honest about what's going on if there's problems, and if good things are happening, to let people know, and so that what honesty and trustworthiness is it lowers people's tension. It raises their comfort level. When we live and work in an honest environment, it feels good. It's a safe environment. Doesn't mean that there aren't problems. It doesn't mean that things don't happen. But we feel safe, and we feel like we're working together. We have each other's back. Whether the good news is there or the bad news is there is not nearly as important as that everybody gets the truth and everybody is treated honestly and in a trustworthy fashion. So don't try to hold back bad news and hold back a bad report, hold back bad findings, try to cover them up to make your department look good or you look good. In the long run, those tactics will fail. Be honest, be trustworthy, be known for that. And you will find that it will reduce tensions in the workplace, and it will foster more harmony as people know they can count on each other and that they can trust each other and that you're being upfront with them. So try it. Step 6, Respect. So important. So important that I had a boss once that used to use the phrase, "Don't trample on their dignity." And I found that it was I've never forgotten that phrase because it's so valuable in a workplace. To not trample on people's dignity. Don't humiliate them. Don't make fun of them. Don't belittle them to their face, in a group, behind their back. Don't gossip. There's one thing about gossip, let me tell you. If you gossip, the person will find out about it. If you go down to the break room and say something and making fun of someone, criticizing him or saying negative things, it will get back to the person that you were talking about. That's what I found. It's a good rule of thumb in the workplace. Everyone says that they're confidential and they'll keep what you say a secret, and the first thing that happens is they go down the hall and the first person they see, they'll say, "Don't tell anyone I told you this," but keep your negative thoughts to yourself. It's best if you don't have the negative thoughts, but if you do, if you're not happy with a worker, you're frustrated with them, it might be okay to talk about the frustration, but to just run them down and to say mean, inappropriate things about them have no place, and they create a disharmony in the workplace. For two things. One, the person you're talking about is obviously going to find out, and there's going to be discord there. The other thing is that people that listen to you gossip are going to say, well, if Pat's gossiping about his coworker, I wonder what he says about me when I'm not in the room. That happens a lot, because someone who gossips usually, or criticizes, usually does it without discrimination. They say it about everybody. So if you're gossiping, that gives everyone a sour taste in their mouth about what kind of a person you are, and it isn't really very pleasant to sit in a coffee room and listen to someone just moan on and whine and complain and criticize. Don't be one of those people. Be diplomatic. Respect other people. If you have a problem with someone, talk to them. If that doesn't work and it's still an issue, go up to a higher level and talk to a supervisor or something. But don't do the talking behind people's back. It doesn't help. It's very, very disruptive to a workplace. And you'll find that your reputation will be hurt in the process. The other thing about respect is respecting the opinions of other people. You have to remember that regardless of your rank in the business, regardless of your level, your pay grade, regardless of your job, that, everybody is just as good as you are. You're not any more special because you have a PhD as someone who has a high school diploma. You're more educated, but you're not any better a person. And you don't particularly have any better ideas. So always respect what other people have to say and treat them with dignity. I had a boss once that used to say, "Pat, you have a way of telling people no, and they don't get mad at you." Well, the reason they didn't get mad at me most of the time was because I tried very hard to follow this technique right here, where if someone came in with an opinion, a complaint, a suggestion, an observation, I would listen to them. It didn't matter what their pay grade was. They could be the lowest paid person, the highest paid person. They were human beings that had something to say. And the other thing that I found is if you practice this and you treat people with dignity and respect, Even if you tell them no, they're very likely to be okay with it. As a matter of fact, I've had a group of people before tell me, Pat, you said no to what we asked for, but we're okay with it. Because at least you listened to us. You heard us out. People want to be treated with respect. They want to be treated with dignity. You do. You want to be treated as a human being with value. And you know, it's nice to get our own way, and it's nice to get what we want, but you know, it's more important that someone just takes us seriously. Someone listens. We exist. Somebody's paying attention to us. And you know, people from all levels of the job are important. As I said, I started out as a janitor, and one thing I realized that in some settings, janitors are looked on as not being very high status. They're looked at as not being very motivated and not being very smart, and all of which is hogwash. But there's one thing about janitors that I quickly found out, and that is that in many organizations, they can be quite influential. Because when you think about it, a janitor is everywhere. They talk to everyone. They meet everyone. They meet you, they meet the CEO. My last job when I was the CEO, at 4 o'clock every day, I had a housekeeper come in and take care of my office, and it was one of her daily assignments. Now think about it. We developed a relationship over time. I got to know about her, where she was from, what she did, how she came to be in that town, how she got that job, and so on. Every day, around 4 o'clock. Every day around 4 o'clock, the housekeeper had a one-on-one meeting with the CEO. She could have made, and I think from time to time did make observations, did point out things. She was one of few people in the entire organization of hundreds of people of all levels, degrees, experience, that had access to the department directors and the CEO every day. That's may not have a lot of, there may not be a lot of authority there, but there's power. There's power because she had an opportunity to influence. So again, I'm trying to encourage you to look at positions differently. Look at the fact that everyone has value and everyone has usefulness. Everyone makes our job a success. So treat everyone with respect and dignity. And what will happen when you do that and you've treated someone with respect, even if you can't approve what they want? If you can, they'll respect you. But if you can't, they'll respect you for having listened to them and treated them with respect, treated them with dignity. So respect other people. Well, this section is on sense of humor, a very important part of a workplace. Very important part. And I venture to say that any workplace, if you think about it, can use humor. And I know many of us do many of you do very important things, critical things, serious things, and that's good. But there's always a place for humor. And there are a couple of rules for humor. One is that it be appropriate for the workplace, tactful, that it be diplomatic. The other thing that I have said in a previous video about humor, as important as it is make sure that it's positive humor. And what I mean by that is, don't laugh at someone's expense. That's really not the best way to go. Humor, the best kind of humor, is where everyone can laugh. And it isn't at someone's expense. It doesn't hurt someone's feelings or tear someone down. Now, sometimes we use humor to diffuse tension. It may be that we're in a situation where there's an outside force that's bearing down on us, that's creating a lot of tension, stress. I've been in situations like that myself, where perhaps a government agency was somewhat hostile, I guess you'd say, or controversial. And part of getting through all of that and working through it was joking about it, and having between us as workers, having funny things to say about that government agency in general, or something like that. Not particularly about a person, but about the organization or something. It helped break the ice, but it wasn't about tearing someone down as a person, like the person that works next to you, going into the coffee room and making fun of the person working next to you. That type of thing, again, is discordant in the workplace, and I don't think there's any place for it. But even practical jokes in a workplace help diffuse tension and increase camaraderie. Again, if they're appropriate, if they're diplomatic, if it's not harmful to the organization, destructive to any property and that sort of thing. Just plain good fun. It can go a long way to making even a stressful situation much lighter. In some of the most stressful atmospheres that I worked in, we laughed the most. We cracked the most jokes. And we knew we were doing it to handle the stress and the tension of the work, of the atmosphere. It worked. And it helps us keep an eye on the brighter side of the sunny side too. There's always a sunny side. And to look at it, it's not about denying that we have problems and thinking that pretending everything is okay. It's about looking for ways to laugh even with things falling apart. And it's possible to do that. But how do you do it? Well, you have to look for it. You have to make it happen. You have to look for funny play on words, or just humorous sides of a situation, doing something that's unexpected at the time. Again, appropriately and diplomatically. But you'd be surprised if you look around you for the humor in a situation, that you can find something. And again, I always caution you, when tensions are high and stress is high, diplomacy is very important. We want to make sure we treat serious situations seriously, but we also want to be able to laugh and joke when we can. And it not only helps diffuse the tension level, the stress level, but it can help increase the cohesiveness of the group. You can have private little jokes, inside jokes, that mean so much. They may be silly, but they just everybody starts laughing, over something that's completely silly and no one else would understand. They help you get through. At the end of the day, they help you say, man, that today sucked, but I sure have a good bunch of people that I work with, and I'm sure glad that I do, in spite of everything. So look for the humor in a situation. And always remember appropriateness as to time and place, spontaneity, having inside jokes, always doing it without criticizing the person next to you, doing it in a positive way. And you'll find that it will go a long way toward making you a more effective work group, you a more satisfied employee, your work group more cohesive is the word I like to use, more harmonious. So give that a try. Building relationships, so important. We talked a lot in other steps about community and working together, co-workers, being honest and reliable, trustworthy. We talked about all those things. We're still looking at all those things, but we're going to add one more element, and that is to try to get to know the other people to the extent appropriate and where it's appropriate on a personal level. Be on the lookout when you're working with somebody. As they talk, they're revealing themselves. They're revealing their life, what they care about, what they don't like, what their fears are, what's important to them, what their hobbies are, their background. There's so much about them. And so as you learn those things about the other person, you know, in an appropriate, non-intrusive way, take them up on that and ask them more about what's important to them. People like to talk about themselves. They like to talk about what's interesting to them. They like to talk about what's exciting to them. They like to talk about what's joyful to them. And all you have to do is pay attention. Be a listener rather than a talker. And let people talk. And when they say they went to a music concert last night, oh, there's an opening. Well, what kind of a concert? Who was playing? You like that kind of music, and so on. Do you play an instrument? It can go in so many different directions. The other thing that can happen is, for example, I like to fish, so I ended up meeting people at work that happen to like to fish too, like my kind of fishing. And so we went fishing together, and I play musical instruments, so in some cases with other people, we participated in musical events together. And so it builds a sense, again, I use this word a lot, cohesiveness, camaraderie, where it's appropriate, to get to know each other. What about their family, their children? Are their children at home with them? Where are their adult children? All kinds of things that are important to them in their life. Again, in an appropriate way, not being nosy, but being interested in the other person. And you may find that you have activities in common that you may choose to get together and share. Maybe you won't, and maybe you will. But the more you know about people, the more solidified your relationships come. The more people know each other, the more they're willing to help each other and cooperate with each other. You're not such an unknown to them. So work on that in a casual way. What you're doing too is you're working with people and getting to know them more and introducing yourself, being open to them. You're building connections. Now, connections are important because in every job I ever received in my life, I can look back and point to a connection. And this goes all the way back to high school. A connection. I can point to a person who opened the door. Now, I may have had to do the work and do a good job, interview and pass the interview and so on. But to have the opportunity to have that door open, I can point to a person. It comes from having connections. Networking. We're talking about networking. And we do that by building relationships. They don't always have to be about fishing and music and bowling. It's about just relationships, getting to know people and getting to know how they operate and who they are and whether you can trust them or not, and building a reputation with them. The personal things help because they show you as more of a human person with human interests, just like everybody else. But the connections go a long way toward helping you, which leads me to the last thing. When it comes to building relationships, never burn bridges. And what I mean by that is, if you're working at this place here, and you know, let's say you're going to get out of here in 3 or 4 months, you're looking for another job, don't use that as a reason to sabotage the place you're working at, to say bad things about them, to criticize, because you want to leave the job you have on a positive note. And I refer to that as don't burn bridges. Now, why is that important? Well, there have been several times in my career as well where, because someone opened a door for me, it was usually because the person that opened the door had worked with me before. It isn't unusual in the workplace, especially in professional jobs, to interview at a new workplace and find, lo and behold, there's somebody that you know or that you know of that has a connection to your old workplace that works there too. Maybe it's the person that's interviewing. Maybe one of your subordinates is now the manager at the place you're interviewing. Or maybe they're just a co-worker there, but they can pick up the phone and say, I wouldn't hire that Pat. He's a real, you don't want him here. That will hurt your chances. That's what I mean about burning bridges. Don't burn bridges. If you don't like the place you're working, that's fine. I'm sure you have good reasons. Then get out. But don't make it a practice and a crusade to torch them on the way out. It can only backfire on you. So remember that. Build relationships, build connections, and don't burn bridges. Well, this last secret should be very easy because it doesn't require that you do anything, for the most part. It just requires that you smile. Just a little. I'm not talking about a big silly grin or a grimace. I'm talking about what's referred to as a half smile. Just a small smile, like you're happy, joyful, just feel good. Not a big smile. There's a funny thing about smiling. You know, we usually think that if we are having a good time, if we're thinking happy thoughts, and that will help us feel happy, and then because we think happy thoughts and we feel happy, that we'll smile. And we will. There is that connection that way. Things happen, we think about it, we feel, we smile. That does happen that way. Well, the secret is that it can happen in reverse. Rather than do all that, which is good, we can start out each day by simply making a half smile in our face as we go about our day and as we remember it, as we're going down hallways or at work, whatever we're doing. We can try to remember to have that, just that half smile. What happens if we make a half smile with our physical body, with our mouth? It will bring upon us, it's strange, but it will bring upon us, because we know when we smile, we feel good, we feel happy. Well, the physical act of smiling will cause us to feel good. cause us to feel happy, you will notice it, I guarantee. The minute you start smiling, and allow yourself to smile, you'll start to feel happy, more joyful. So it works in the opposite direction. And you can do this whenever you think about it all day long. And I guarantee you, be aware of that as you smile. Register how your feelings are. And you'll find that it kind of makes you feel good by going in reverse. The other thing that happens when we smile, we're walking down an aisleway. Other people see us. We look approachable. We look like we're not defensive. We look like we're someone they could talk to. We certainly look like we're somebody they could say hello to. And I have noticed that before. I was in a Walmart once walking, and I was practicing that half smile. I thought I was the only one in the aisle, and not really paying attention. Some young person was coming toward me, come around the corner, and was coming toward me, and I looked at them as they got close, and I noticed they were looking at me and they're just smiling, and I thought, well, I don't know this person, why they're smiling. Well, it was because I was smiling. I looked happy. And I've noticed that with other people. There are people that I've noticed who didn't say a thing to me, but they were smiling, and it was just like, I'd like to know that person. So remember to smile throughout your day. The half smile, you'll find yourself more welcoming, more open, more receptive. People will perceive you that way. And it will help break ice. It will help create a warmer atmosphere wherever you're at, whatever you're doing. So add that to your list to be successful at your job. Don't forget to smile. Well, there you have it. The 9 secrets to being a success at work. Practice these on a daily basis, and as I mentioned at the beginning, it's not only important to know about these things and to think about them, but you must put them into practice. You must take action on a day-to-day basis. Again, whether you feel like it or not. And as I mentioned in the beginning, you should find all 9 of these natural. They should be easy to try to implement because they come from deep within us. It's who we are. We're loving, kind, gentle people. We want to be happy. We want to be appreciated at work. We want to be helpful to other people. And we want other people to help us. So really, when you look at these 9 steps, that's all it is. It's just applying those things. Act naturally. Just let it come out. The work part is to make the effort, since it's not a habit that you implement these 9 every day, to do that. Some of them may take more work than others. And see if you don't begin to change how you are looked at in the workplace, how you feel about your work, but how successful you are at your job. It's not a guarantee that you'll become the CEO of your corporation. But it is a guarantee that you'll be successful and that you'll feel good about your job and that you'll feel fulfilled and rewarding for your job and for what you're doing. And so try these. I think you'll find them very beneficial. I wish you all of the best luck in the world. And good luck in your job. Good luck being a success.